Good day, everyone. Today we're going to be learning about key concepts of maths. For our grade 5 geography lesson, presented by me, Joslyn, currently a second year student at the IIE's Varsity College. Firstly, let's look at what are we going to be learning about in this lesson. Our lesson outline. A definition of a map. Common features on maps. How maps are made, and then our different types of maps. Our lesson outcomes today, so what we should be able to do by the end of this lesson, is define what a map is and its use. State the common features of a map and give their definition. Explain how maps are made. List the different types of maps, and lastly, be able to describe them. Let's have a look at the definition of a map. So we are going to look at what a map is and what a map presents lastly. Two very important things to know. What is a map? A map is a visual representation of a place's characteristics, presenting information about. Look on the side, I've included a sticky note of what the map represents information about. The size, the shape, the features, the distance, the settlement patterns, and locations in a city. And now a map is usually drawn on a flat surface. So a piece of paper or a flat piece of wood, whichever they desire to draw the map on, as long as it's flat. Our common features that we find on maps. What features can we see on a map? What are these features used for? Our common features on a map include our scales, our symbols, and our grids. And these are usually, the common ones we found on our maps. Now let's have a look at our scale. Like I said, the maps include the scales. So let's firstly look at scales. Maps are scale maps of reality, representing the relationship between the distance on the map and the actual distance on Earth. So, wow, that was a mouthful. What does that mean? So, if I look at, for example, our country, South Africa, on a map, that does not mean that the size on the map is how big it is in reality. But if I had to walk South Africa, that I'll be walking this, it is on the size on the map. That's not the case here. Maps are scale maps of reality. So, our map is technically one big scale because when I look at how big South Africa is, it's only a scale of how big it actually is in reality. Only a little part of it, not even like a teeny part. So usually our scale would say something like 1 centimeter equals 500,000 kilometers on the actual map. I'm just making an example of a scale. Now let's look at the different types of scales you get. So you get three different types of scales. And whatever map it is depends on which scale would be paired with it. So we get graphic scales, and this is horizontal lines marked off in miles or kilometers. We get representative fractions, which is fractions or ratios using maths here, indicating that any given unit on the map is equal to 1 million of the units on Earth. Wow. Variable scales are relate distance on the map to Earth's actual distance, like I said earlier. On the left, I've included an infographic of the different scales that I have mentioned. So on the very left, we can see the pictures. Now that's graphic skills. So when we say we use graphic, we use color, we use pictures. So that is an example of a graphic skill. And then we have our example of a verbal skill. So we know in inches, we don't use inches in South Africa, but we do use centimeters in South Africa. So 1 centimeter equals 940 kilometers in reality. And then we have our representative fraction scale. Like I said, that is used in fractions or ratios. So we usually have one at the top, and then our denominator is usually however kilometers it actually equals in reality. The infographic also includes that line next to it, and you can see at the very top it says a small scale. So at our very top line, we have our very small scale, and it goes down to our very large scale. So you can get scales that are big and small, depending on the size of your map or the size of your cities or your countries that your map represents. Now, let's have a look at these things called symbols that we get on our map. This is the hard word. Cartographers use symbols to represent geographic features such as cities, boundaries, roads, and rivers. Colors like green, tan, and blue, which is usually used for our rivers and our seas, are used for different regions. Maps often have legends explaining the symbol and scale. Now, what is a legend? The legend is basically the key that to the pictures we can see on the map. So on the side of the map, you will get a little block that says legend. Then you'll see maybe a picture of an airplane. Then it will show the airport. Right, like at the top right of our page, you'll see you get an airplane that says, then it will say airport. Then it will maybe show a petrol tank, and then it will say petrol station. Or it will show maybe like a little envelope, and then it will show, say, the post office. And the red cross you get for the hospital, then it would say the hospital. So basically, the legend is a little box with our key to our symbols. Contour lines or topographic lines show elevation changes, often forming circles. So now what is elevation? So elevation is when it's either high or low or extremely low. And what would be high, low, or extremely low? That will be our mountains or our rocks or our rivers. And these elevations are usually shown with different brown colors, different browns, different oranges. Obviously, the darker brown would be the highest, and the lightest brown would be the lowest. As elevation increases, these circles, they're usually indicated by like squiggly circles, indicate hills, while decreasing, they indicate depressions, which means your low-lying areas. And did you know that people who create maps are called cartographers? That big word I said in the beginning. Now, let's look at our grids. So, what is our grid and what do we use it for? If you've seen a map, you can see that maps often feature a grid pattern consisting of latitude and longitude, lines which help locate places on the map. The intersection, when lines go like this or like this, are these lines called coordinates determine the exact location of a place on detailed maps. The grid is often given numbers and letters, with boxes labeled A, B, C, D, and so on. So usually when we look at a map, we will see on our left-hand side, from from top to bottom, it would be our numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., etc. And at the bottom, we will see our letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on and so on. Now let's look at latitude and longitude. I know you learned this in grade 4, but just in case we forgot, let's look at it again. So latitude is the horizontal imaginary lines that tell the location north and south of our equator. Now longitude, longitude, the vertical imaginary lines that tell the location east or west of the prime ridge meridian. Now that can also be called our international dateline. Okay. Remember, our compass: never eat silkworms. East or west, north or south. Sorry, I think it might be opposite to you due to my photo being obviously recorded, vice versa. And both latitude, see the little guy in the middle is saying, both latitude and longitude are measured in degrees, not degrees Celsius, like we cook our cake in the oven, but degrees. Let's look at how maps are made. Why is a map made? And secondly, what is considered when creating that map? So, first, let's look at how our maps are made. So, how maps are made. Cartographers create maps based on their audience's needs and the purpose of the map. They consider the language used, such as Braille. Now, remember, Braille is for blind people. It's those little dots, so if you're blind, you feel, and you can feel a word or a picture. And the audience's preferences. Lines of latitude and longitude are plotted on a flat surface, and features are drawn, like we went through earlier. Before computerization, so when they put on the computer, maps were drawn by hand using coated plastic sheets. That's very interesting. Today, most mapping is done using computers, allowing for quick and easy changes to colors, roads, and topographic features. Like I said, the low-lying areas and obviously our high mountains. This allows for easy printing and distribution of this new map. Are different types of maps. What is a map and what a map represents? Sorry. That is a little bit of a mistake on the slides, but in this section we're going to obviously looking at our different types of maps, and we get two. Pretty simple. We get the general reference maps. So this provides geographic information about an area, including the cities in it, the boundaries, the roads, mountains, the rivers, and the coastal lines, our seas. This is, if you look at South Africa on a map, this is the perfect example of it. Government agencies like USGS create topographic maps useful for the hikers and engineers in determining the routes and construction sites. So this obviously helps our hikers or our construction companies who want to fix the roads, I think they mainly fix roads. And this will obviously be useful to them to look at this map and see, okay, well, I need to fix that road from I need to fix the N2, for example. The N2 is that long, the N2 is this height. Um, and then we have our thematic maps. Um, the thematic maps display Earth's surface patterns, focusing on a theme such as, crop production, income, or rainfall. So this is kind of like a survey type of thing when you have a survey, or now your survey is presented, and sometimes they'll actually represent it in a map to show the different countries, income, rainfall, crop production, or if it would be for South Africa, for example, they would show a South African map, and then it would be our different provinces or even our different cities. Thematic maps display Earth's surfaces, patterns, focusing on a theme such as crop production, income, or rainfall. GIS technology is used to create these maps, combining data from maps with other information on it. This technology is used by industries and governments for analysis and decision making, and helping to identify polluted streams and determine new store locations. So, if they want to put a new store somewhere, they look at the map and they'll be like, okay, that is a great location because it's got water, it's got low lying areas. Obviously, we can't build like a mall on a mountain or a hill. And that is very helpful to governments to perform analysis of our low populated areas, our high populated areas, our low resource areas, our high resource areas. So yeah, that's what the thematic map is useful. We have come to the end of our lesson today, and I want to thank you for listening. I hope you now have a good understanding on map skills. And I really enjoyed teaching this lesson to you today. I got all this information from National Geographic Education, an article on maps, and I have included the reference and the URL that you may use to click on to go read this article. Thank you once again, and good luck for this lesson.